how do I know that my son is actually enjoying playing the drums, or maybe I just wanted to play the drums and I never did? And, how do I know that I'm not pushing him to do something that he's actually enjoying?
Yeah, it's actually kind of what I wanted to talk about. I'm glad my son just left the room. We were a little late in discovering, which is best described as an accelerated learner. What we were beginning to think was a very bright kid was something else entirely. It's a different beast. And it was a weird realization, because you have this thing like, oh, my kid needs specialized education, truly an accelerated curriculum. The story is applicable to whatever you find your strengths for your child are, and what learning environment will be good for them. And since we were late to the game, it meant that we didn't open up the correct options in that year that the kid was 4. We started looking at progressive schools, because that was our inclination, and that was completely incorrect for him. And ultimately, we found our values were quite different than that. And that's something about that year that you're looking for when the child is 4, when you're looking for a school for your child. You learn a lot about your values, and it does matter what your values are. You may value music so highly, or the arts, or mathematics, and you want to find a school that meets not only, I think, your needs as a parent, but clearly what you discover about your son or daughter. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, if you are talking about a private kindergarten for your child, that track does start extremely early. One of the characters in my movie says it, and she says, well, if you're not in the right pre-K, you're not going to go to the right kindergarten. And I have to say, for certain extremely selective schools in New York, it is true, because they don't have any spots in kindergarten. All of their spots start in pre-K, private, right? So hopefully nobody here has to worry about that. But if you do, and we looked at private school, and I know Chinny looked at it as well. Our kids are now both in different public schools. It is something you do need to look at age 2 or 3, because the pre-K may be affiliated with a private school that you want to go to, or it's just part of the process, because your kid is going to end up going to private school in pre-K.
So let's differentiate. It sounds like what Lori's doing by giving her child all these educational options, by acting in some ways as her teacher as well as her parent. What you're talking about learning about your child's style, you're talking about opening up options. I think the fear that parents have is that a decision I make while my child is 2 is going to close most doors. As opposed to focusing on opening lots of doors, you get this sense, and maybe in this extreme example it's the case, that there will be a few doors that are closed to me. My child is not going to that kindergarten. But is it the case that whatever preschool decision I make for my 2-year-old, I'm for sure closing a lot of doors?
Absolutely not. And people that get into the private school track at age 2 or 3 may bail on that, decide that's not what they want. But again, for the top tier private schools, you do need to be that focused. It's actually one of the advantages of public school. But I agree to some extent that the choice you make for your child is not the only choice in your life, and there is movement, and kids are very resilient. At the same time, there are certain points in a child's life, or in all of our lives, that there's suddenly this option for change and things to happen. And it is true in New York that kindergarten movement is really crucial. It is crucial to open up as many options when your child is entering kindergarten. Why? Because there are not many spots in first grade for gifted and talented programs. It is very hard to make change after that. So I think it's really important to look at those key moments and say, this is the year that I need to find as many options as possible. And I think that's why the preschool year, that when they're 4, is just so important for a parent to be focused.
I wanted to give a quick answer to your child development question about how to know if you're projecting. Give your son some options. Introduce him to something that's interesting to you, like the drums, but then on a different morning, say to him, hey, let's make some music. So, do you want to play drums, or do you want to whistle, or do you want to hum, or give him a few choices. If he consistently comes back to that option, it's probably his passion as well. Are there good options for special needs kids, age 1 through 5?
There are many preschools that have inclusionary classes.
There are separate special needs schools. I just know a few in Queens. There's Stepping Stone. There's ICCD. Again, you have them listed. I hope you have them listed. You don't have any. You don't have pre-K. Oh, okay. But there are definitely specialized preschools in New York for special needs children, without a doubt. But you need to know. You need to know, again, you need to know your child. And the other thing that I always encourage, I'm not a diagnostician, but if you have any doubt or any questions about your child, go to your pediatrician
or family doctor
and ask them if they should be evaluated. Don't get crazy and think, oh my God, my child has to be evaluated for everything. But if you have any doubts, have them evaluated. There's so many services for children.
And every well child check, your child's doctor should be evaluating developmental issues. There were another question. You had a follow up real quick? What in the world is someone looking at an 18-month-old for? That's the question. With an 18-month-old interview, what in the world are they interviewing?
Well, my boys went into play dates at that age, went straight to the room, didn't say a word, and put play down on their mount, while my husband and myself stood against the wall sweating. That's what they did. And what they look for is the most sociable kid, the most well-balanced class, so they have to get the right mix of girls and boys, and I have 2 boys, and I was told by some directors, twins, boys, newcomer to New York City. So it's tough, so no, I mean, they're healthy, active 6-year-olds today, but at 18 months they were not talking, they were not sharing in the sandbox, but some kids were.
Okay, 18-month-olds
girls are always more mature than the average boy.
18-month-olds don't share.
Right, well,
it's not normal.
Right, and that's what I was told, that in a sandbox in playground, I was told to tell my boys to share, as they pass along. And you know what? Babies are not born learning, knowing how to share. It's a skill that they need to learn over time, and their toys, it's a natural instinct. They do not want to share. So what I would say is that, but that's what goes on during the preschool process, because the competition is very high and there are more parents applying for the places than the actual number of places. So it's supply and demand that makes the process so competitive.
So check out preschools.org, the Mamas Network.
Yeah, and we're planning a homeschooling event at our store. We haven't yet figured out when it's going to be, but we want to have a homeschool support. Come talk. Let's talk to everybody. So check, I can talk to you too. Like, we want to get people together. That's the way to do it. Get a community. Let's build a community and let's do it. Let's figure out what we want to do.
Wendy, with your comment, will you start everyone wrapping up? Just
Yes, I promise. The other answer to where to find preschools, there are many preschools that don't have a religious bent. Through your churches and your synagogues and JCCs and YMCAs, it's an enormous resource. So don't forget about those, because any organization that is community-based wants to serve your children, as does Music Together. I'm just kidding.
That's my wrap-up.
Do you have any last words you'd like to share with us about the Kindergarten Shuffle, how to find the movie, anything?
Yeah, certainly I'll give a pitch for my movie, but also I have a website, kindergartenshuffle.com, of course, where you can order the movie, but also I have a link to my blog, and in the blog, which I think is the filmprofessor.wordpress.com, get to the link from the Kindergarten Shuffle website. I spent a couple years getting information about the kindergarten admissions process. You can go to that blog and dig through older posts and learn a tremendous amount and get a lot of tips about what you're going to do. And yeah, one thing we didn't talk about was options for kindergarten, religious schools. If you are comfortable sending your kid to a Catholic school, there are a lot of great ones. There are a lot of ones that are not so great, but there are a lot of great ones. Jewish day school is an option. It's less expensive than a traditional private school. So I like those ideas as well. So again, yeah, And my movie really does try to give a parent's eye view of what is going on. We even show a private school play date. And if you want to talk to me more about what they do in that, I learned a lot about it we created one. So
can I just say something about the kindergarten shuffle? I already have been to the preschool process twice before I discovered the kindergarten shuffle. And I so wish I have watched it before I started the process, because the storyline follows a normal happy couple, just like all of you, before you start the process. And it follows what goes on. And it's reality, it happens to all of us living in New York City. But had I seen it before I started, it would have made me feel so much better. I would have laughed through the process a little bit more, as opposed to crying for 6 months. So I cannot recommend watching that movie, because as opposed to going through 50 websites and doing all the research on all the different options at age 5, you spend, how long is the movie? 90 minutes? 90 minutes, you're done. And you know, you've got it forever to go back to refer to, okay?
Chinny, before you give up the microphone, will you just say what you're speaking about at 3?
I will be speaking about childcare options at 3 o'clock.
I think it's great that those of you, I see all these little babies out there, and it's great that you are engaged and interested at this point. There are so many options, there really are, but it does put a little bit more burden on parents today that you have so many choices. So being engaged at this stage, I think, you know, if you are in New York with so many choices, you're going to have to stay engaged for a while, because you have to choose again when you get to middle school, and you have to choose again for high school. And then you have the joy of going through the college application process, which I've been through 3 times. But I do think that there are, talk to other parents. This is a great resource that you can learn so much. And if you want to check out your neighborhood school, I'm just going to plug schoolbook.org.
Okay, we're going to let Lori wrap up and then let everybody go, but you're welcome to stay and come up and ask questions afterwards.
Just wanted to say that we really, part of our store mission is to really build community. So anytime anybody wants to host an event about anything, connect with other people about anything, call us, we'll set it up. We'll set up an event, whatever it is you want, special needs, homeschooling, like that's really what we want to do. That's what I need for myself, so that's what I'm using my store to do. So.
Okay, and I'm going to end with my plug. I hope if you have developmental and behavioral questions, you will grab my card off the rail at the back. And thank you all so much for attending.